Today, I chat with Cheryl Cohen from the Springfield, Missouri area. I'm Rick J., your host, and this is Spotlight on the Arts. Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts, supported by many worldwide now, shall we say, thanks to you too. We're coming to you today from Capitol Arts Gallery in Jefferson City, Missouri. That's the capital of Missouri, for your history and geographical buffs. So I want to welcome you to the show. And naturally, I hope you will join me in now turning the spotlight on Cheryl Cohen and welcoming Cheryl to Spotlight on the Arts here at Jefferson City, Missouri today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. Been looking forward to it for a long time now. Well, please join me, if you would, in sharing with the viewers a little bit about Cheryl, your past and family and etc.
Etc. Okay. I have loved art ever since I was 10 years old. And I didn't have an art program in the school where I grew up with, so I was able to learn through the John Maggie art kit.
Oh my, we just had this.
Yes.
Just had our guest, Gary Cadwallader,
Yes.
talking about John Maggie. So that's same here, great.
Yes, and for a young aspiring artist, that was extremely helpful. It allowed me to work on my coordination skills and my value perception and my shape drawing. And my parents bought that for me for one Christmas, and I was just absolutely tickled.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yes.
And where did you attend school? You was talking about as a youngster.
As a youngster, I lived in several different places. I was born in Houston, Missouri, and then moved to actually near here, Lake of the Ozarks.
I see.
And then moved to a wildlife area near Winona, Missouri.
Yes, I see.
And I lived there for 15 years.
Oh, excellent. So you're down in some great country down
Yes.
around that area.
Yes.
Springfield especially.
Yes.
So you mentioned being inspired by the artist Academy. Now later on, what was your main inspiration when you basically came into adulthood, and maybe where you finally saw that you had some talent or some, should we say, skills?
Yes. I believe I started like many other children, learning how to handle a pencil and learning how to draw purposefully. I tried to draw what I saw, and eventually I succeeded at that. And it takes years to actually go from one skill to the next. So, I learned to handle line, I learned to handle shape, I learned to graduate to watercolor. And my family did not have a lot of resources when I was little, so I painted on brown paper bags and I would paint on scrap paper. I did whatever I could to practice with my color and my brush.
See. Oh, wow. So you was definitely wanting to make a career somewhat in the field of art,
Yes.
visual arts, I
Yes.
guess we would call it.
Yes.
Well, what continues to then to be your inspiration nowadays, in this year 2020,
Yes.
in a pandemic?
Right.
Scenic.
Remarkable year.
Yes.
Remarkable. After I moved from Peck Ranch, I actually came to Southwest Baptist University in Bolivar, Missouri, where I attended a 4-year undergraduate.
Ah.
And basically made lots of mistakes and learned a lot in the process in my fine art field. And I also decided to have a double major, which was psychology and art.
Ah,
So the psychology is just now being used more through my color choices and my abstract work.
so you did tie that in.
I did.
When you say psychology, I think of the folded piece of paper with the ink together. They used to talk about what can you see in this image?
Yes.
The ink blot, I guess you would
Yes.
call it. So that's great that you can tie it in now. So generally when we do artwork, as we've talked about before, there is generally a basis for it. So that's very interesting. The first time that anyone has been on the program that has used the psychology, the study thereof, psychology, and ties it into her artwork and the overall layout, design, and maybe what you see in one of her paintings. I think that would come to mind real quick. Well, how then do the ideas come to you? Our viewers or listeners, how do you become up with a beautiful painting like next to it?
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yes. And of course, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for other artists. But sometimes when I think I'm more intuitive, I believe that they call it intuitive, where I will look at a subject or I'll look at maybe a group of subjects, and something about that subject is like the light bulb goes off.
Uh-huh.
It's intuitive. It's like, okay, this is what I need to capture.
Exactly.
And then the training and the color choices and the line, the shape, then I use that.
Excellent. I think that, again, basic is the basis for all of us.
Yes.
Something inspires us by intuition or what it is. So I know that with me, I see something, I have to paint it. Once it's in my mind,
Right.
I can usually carry it out on canvas, what have you. Well, now, we're looking at a painting here on the easel. Give us a little bit of a story behind this painting and what it means to you. We'll be talking about a lot more of her paintings after the break, but let's go ahead and tell us the story on this beautiful,
Okay.
awesome painting here.
I get to eat my words because I just told you that I was inspired by something I saw. This is inspired by color choices only. And I would dig in my tool drawer and find all these different tools to make shapes with, and had my color palette set out, chosen, and I just play. Literally, it feels like play. I will start with, I love orange, so I will usually start with my warms and then work out.
And explain warms to those that don't understand.
Yes.
Warms and cools, you know, they talk about it a lot in art instruction, but from someone right now in India or Africa watching the program, or wherever,
Yes.
in Russia, we have a family in Russia who should be watching the program. What is warm? What is cold? What is cool?
I used to think that warm was one side of the color wheel and cool was on the other, but when you get into very subtle color changes, that doesn't work. So what I use as a guide is I put two colors next to each other, and whichever color seems to come toward me is the warm, and whichever color goes back is the cool.
Yes, like the sky at the
Yes.
lower level,
Yes.
horizon would be a warm,
Yes,
and the sun right above,
yes,
sunset would be the more warmer.
yes.
Now in this painting, I'm looking, you've spoken of loving reds and oranges. Which would be between the red there and the orange? Which would be the warm and which would be the cool? Or is there a cool?
There is. Everything has a temperature change, and right now the orange comes forward the most.
Yes.
The red is a little bit cooler. It seems to go back.
Okay.
And the yellows that I have are actually grayed, and so they actually go back, not forward.
And grade, for you folks, again, another term, grade. Complementary colors we work with in oils and watercolors, what have you, acrylics. By taking the opposite of your red, which is green, that's called the complementary opposite. If you take a red and you put green in it, it will gray it to a gray, and eventually some colors like orange and blues will actually turn black. So when we mix colors for a formula of a painting, we try to stay within our colors and we gray them down with the opposite complementary color so that they become a mixture on the canvas controlled like a recipe in baking a cake or whatever. So I can see that she has grayed down her colors from my experience. So then there's a recipe basically on the canvas, and she's controlling those warms and those cools with graying down, bringing out the brightest with the less opposite of red. That's almost a red of right out of the tube. But as you see the red here, that's a grayed down red to a certain degree, or an orange. So yes, go ahead.
And an example of color mixing is, we'll say this blue, which comes forward a little, but not as much as the orange. And I take the blue and the orange and a little bit of red and a little bit of this dark, and this color.
Yes.
So I add a little bit of white.
I may add again, if you take your ladies with a lipstick and you have a dark lipstick and your red lipstick, put them side by side, the red lipstick will come out at you as if it's on your lip, maybe to attract attention. But if you put the black next to the red, you'll see it almost looks like a black hole, and it disappears at more of a distance. So that's how we control depth and perception in a painting, and certain things that want to come out. And there's another trick that I use, is I use a 3D glass. 3D glasses that I've talked on a few times. And you put those glasses on and you'll really see the depth perception, what is warm up front, especially reds, and what is distant in the blues and lighter colors, greens, what have you. Well, we're getting close to a commercial break, believe it or not. Cheryl, please hang with us a few moments. You've shared so much. Can't wait to get to the second portion, second segment. Thank you. Thank goodness. I wanted to share with you all we can here at Capitol Arts Gallery in Jefferson City, Missouri, Missouri Boulevard. They're having what they call Give the Gift of Art from now until about the 19th of December. So if you're in the area or want to drive up to Capitol Arts, there's some great artwork which I'll be showing you here online. So keep Capitol Arts Gallery in mind, not only for the gift of giving art, but also for their annual shows that they represent and feature and exhibit. So don't forget, that's at 1302 Missouri Boulevard, Capitol Arts Gallery in Jefferson City, Missouri. Welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Rick J. We continue our conversation and chat with artist Cheryl Cohen from the Springfield, Missouri area. Cheryl, you have shared so much information and education, what have you, in the first segment. So let's go ahead and continue with your art. It's so outstanding, and so we want to learn more, I guess I could say. Could you start off, please, with any current or past acknowledgments that you would like to mention, more or less to sort of endorse what you've gained with your art? That's kind of basically rewarding to us when we are exhibited. I understand you have paintings at the St. Louis University Hospital.
Yes, that is true. I have currently have 16 3-foot by 3-foot large pastel framed paintings there. Yes.
Pastels.
Pastels.
Very hard to work with.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you, into the pandemic now, if you end up in the St. Louis University Hospital, please take a look if you feel up to it. Just a little bit of humor there, dry humor, I guess. But, art does bring us up from the lows sometimes. So that's only in a positive manner that I present that as an invitation to view art if you get a chance to visit the St. Louis University Hospital.
Yes.
And what's the theme, basically, on those paintings?
Actually, the University Hospital chose Missouri Botanical Gardens as their theme.
Oh, my.
And each floor is a different flower.
Super.
And so I have 4 floors represented, but I'm not the only one. There's actually 250 different originals from different artists that are represented, and I have 16 of those.
And is that an ongoing exhibit?
It is. It will stay in the hospital, as I understand it, for 10 to 12 years.
Oh my,
Yes.
excellent, excellent. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. Well now, any other current or past acknowledgements you'd like to mention?
I'm going to think.
You do exhibit.
I do exhibit. I have won awards. I've won honorable mentions. Of course, I'm more pleased when a collector wants to own the painting. That's the highest compliment, I feel like.
I guess.
I am into the win-win, where I love to create the painting, and I love it when someone wants to take it into their home and live with it. That's total win-win.
This is definitely a win
Yes.
for both.
Yes.
That's for sure. I'd like to ask you now, your process. You work with oils and pastels and watercolor.
Yes.
So do you have, I always say it basically starts with an intuitive thought from looking at some type of a subject matter. Do you have a process that you follow? Do you do a drawing beforehand, or you just go for it?
That has evolved over the years. I used to do extensive sketches and plans on a painting before I started it. And after you do that for a few years, now I do it all in my head.
I hear you. I started painting, which I've shared on Instagram. Some of my starts this last week, about 5 or 6 paintings now in the process. And I just basically take the brush and say the building's going to be here and outline it with brush strokes and get the perspective on it. And people say, that's going to be a painting. And then when it's finally finished, they'll see. But I don't waste the time drawing anymore. That's what I think you're basically doing that. So it begins basically with a thought and laying down some paintings in certain areas to get the perspective and of the, shall we say, the line of, if it's whether it be abstract or whatever, it still has, you have to lay it out.
Yes, you have to plan a little bit, yes.
Well, I know you like these mediums. Which one is your favorite?
Well, currently, I do prefer the oils.
I agree. I'm with you on that. I love the magic of oils.
Yes.
It blends so well, and
yes,
you can control them.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. Pastels are hard to work with.
You develop, it's almost like you have to build a relationship with pastels.
Yes.
You have to decide what works best for you. People use them many different ways. And I have to use pastels on surfaces that I have created myself. That's the best way I can use them.
And watercolors, I had a young lady from St. Louis, Missouri was on, and she does watercolors, and she says basically that watercolors, she loves them, but watercolors seem to think they're in control.
That they are.
And therefore, it's a little more frustrating.
Yes.
But worth sometimes the magic of the watercolor is what they present in the
Yes.
long run. I guess you could say.
I think one of the recent things I have learned and have started to incorporate is appreciating the energy and variety of line and strokes you can make. And so when I paint that final stroke, I can appreciate the fluidity and the spontaneity of it. And that fits watercolor. It can also fit oils.
Well, now we're looking at an oil. Tell us a little bit about this. We'll be talking about a few more in a moment. Let's go ahead and tell us what's happening here.
Okay, this painting was born in my studio one night when COVID was rampaging through the country. This was back in January, February, and I was very, very frustrated and angry because nobody knew how to control it. I went in and grabbed my paints, all the colors you see here, and I just started pushing them around. All of this chaos that is on this canvas came from me, and now it's on the canvas.
And represented this COVID-19
Yes.
pandemic.
Yes.
So this is like a war
Yes.
that you're seeing. We're all fighting. Even today, sitting 6 foot apart, we're fighting to keep healthy and still bring you these programs. So this is the war on the pandemic.
That's my visual
Your
interpretation.
visual interpretation is super. I see different things. One lady recently commented it looked like a vase. I see a rooster maybe even at the top. So that's what's great about this, shall we say, this subject matter that you choose to lay down in this fashion. Now, I do landscape. Everything's detail. What do you see when you put something as remarkable as this painting together? What do you see? Just colors and
I see colors and energy. I see emotion.
presenting themselves.
Yes.
Motion.
Yes.
Motion of the brush.
Yes.
If you follow the
motion of brush.
strokes,
Yes.
that's the motion of the brush.
Yes.
When you look at an abstract, look at the brush marks. They tell the story.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
It's much like handwriting. We each have our own unique handwriting, and this is just another language similar to handwriting.
Same way, if you slant your letters left or right, that's true. So you have the same thing. That's great that you shared that, because we've been needing to sort of diagnose that in a sense. Well, planned exhibits, pardon me. I have invited you to show a painting in my exhibit. That'll be at the Runge Nature Conservation Center coming up May and June of this year, 2021, unless the pandemic wins again. So the invitation is open, May and June. Make sure you have a painting there, if you would.
That'd be great. I would appreciate that.
Okay, super. All right. So, any other shows that you are scheduled for, exhibits?
Right now, I am in a small works exhibit in a gallery in Topeka, Kansas, called Southwind Art Gallery. And they are small sunsets, but they have many wonderful small pieces. It would be great for the holiday season. If you're interested in art.
You're down around Springfield.
Yes.
There's a couple of galleries in Springfield.
Yes.
John and Deborah Whitehawk.
Yes.
I understand I love to present down in that area.
Yes.
At a gallery, I cannot think of the name of it now. Still represented. Art is wherever we look for. It seems like it's going to be there in some form or fashion. Well, let's talk about your favorites. I think, you mentioned a painting called Azaleas of many colors. Now, I raised flowers for myself, sister, and brother-in-law. So the azaleas are one of my favorites. So now looking on the timeline, there's azaleas of many colors. Tell us a little bit about this painting?
This painting was born in the studio, not a plein air. I used a reference photo, and it is a successful interpretation. As artists, we evolve by trying to personalize as many of those different art elements as we can. We try to figure out what kind of line we like, we figure out what kind of shapes we are drawn to, and which kind of colors that we want to personalize and make our own. And the Azaleas of Many Colors has my personal color palette used in it. And it was very successful, and I was tickled with how it came out. I was invited to have this piece in a home show in Columbia, and it sold. So I feel like it spoke to other people as much as it spoke to me. So I was really appreciative.
Well, now we're looking at peony with dreams, peony dreams. I love those beautiful peonies.
Yes, yes. And that was also use of my personal color palette, which is the teals, pinks, lavenders, a little bit of orange. Except that on this painting, I was playing with edges and not thinking that I was creating a dream image, but just playing with edges. And when I got done, I thought, well, this looks like a dream. This looks like something I would wake up to. So.
Excellent, excellent. I see what you mean. Now, this beautiful, awesome painting is called Flower Frolic.
Yes.
Frolic.
Frolic,
Yeah,
yes.
Frolic.
And I think when I paint using bright colors, I kind of regress into a kid again. A little bit of that earlier part of me comes out, and I still am using my favorite color palette, my dark rose colors, my teals, my purples, but I'm using them very strongly. And this was a very small painting. It's only, I believe, an 8x8, and it just creates quite a punch because the colors really stand out. This one also was created with a slightly different technique. I discovered that if I put down a layer of acrylic, in this case it would be the alizarin crimson underlayer, and I used my other personal palette colors on top. So the red pops through.
And it gives more depth. Layering, I believe in layering.
Yes.
So it does give more depth. And you can paint oils on top of acrylics.
Right.
But you cannot paint acrylics on top of oils.
They don't recommend it. Yeah.
That would peel eventually. Well, now moving along, feathered peonies. Now I have Chinese feathered peonies. They're ragged on the edges, so immediately looking at this painting reminds me of those beautiful feathered peonies that I have every spring.
Yes. And I actually went to the Springfield Botanical Center, and during May, when the peonies were blooming, I set up my easel, I had my little 6x6 canvas, and I painted that on location. So it is, when I look at this painting, I smell the air, I hear the birds, I see the flowers. It's just really turned into a really nice experience.
And those peonies have their own smells.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah, excellent. And this next one, this is interesting. We saw that moments ago as renewal.
Yes.
So we talked about it.
We did talk about that.
Bit. Well, moving on then, the coronavirus war.
And that is
about that. So, well, thanks, Cheryl. We getting close to closing up. So I know you do commission work. So,
yes, I do.
You do accept commissions. Can you give us a little bit of contact info?
Yes, I would prefer that people contact me through my email, which is Cheryl, Cheryl, and the last name is Cohen, Coen, fineart @gmail.com.
Super. Well, thanks again, and Cheryl does beautiful work. So think about a commission or purchase of one of her paintings. in the area. On the website, you can keep posted where you can see these face to canvas as an onlooker. So,
Can I give my website address?
yes, and your website.
The www.CherylCohenFineArt.com, and you can go on there and browse different categories. And I have flowers, I have a few landscape, I have abstract. I have many different sizes and prices and subjects. So you can explore that.
Well, do you have any closing words for viewers worldwide, thanks to YouTube? You can look at the camera and you have any words of inspiration? Someone might be in a lull or hasn't picked up the brush.
Yes.
It's so rewarding.
Yes, especially for the newer artists and for some of the older ones that have been working a while. You will not succeed if you give up. You just can never give up. You have to find ways to adapt, to use whatever you have available. And if you have a passion, you have to have the passion to keep working even when you fail. And it's okay to fail. That's how we learn. So
Passionate, that's the name of the game when we do any type of art, whether we're an entertainer, musician, actor, or whatever. It's all about spotlighting the arts. And thank you so much again.
thank you for having me.
Well, thanks again. Goes out to Capital Arts Gallery here in Jefferson City, Missouri, for providing this location. Cameraman Rick J. today. And a super thank you goes to our viewers worldwide. So I say, look for more Spotlight on the Arts on YouTube. Be safe and stay healthy. Rick J. saying, see you next time.